All right, we are live.
We
We are live.
live.
Yes, yes,
What
sir.
up? What up?
What's going on?
What up? What's good, bro?
I am chilling. I am chilling. So party people in the place to be. I go by the name of BK Apologist, transmitting live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. You already know. I'm with my man. Together we are the EPMD of urban apologetics. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Yeah, bro.
What's going on, y'all? It's your hometown hero, the real Adam Coleman, host of the True ID podcast. And I can now say, man, founder of True ID Apologetics Ministries, man. We incorporated last month. So like we are really we official now, man.
Nice.
And I want to say this too. You probably got to get some clarity as to what we mean, or what you meant by the EPMD thing.
It's an old school hip hop reference. It's one of the greatest hip hop duos of all time. Of course, people will debate, Run DMC and maybe Mobb Deep, but
Mobb Deep, really?
I mean, they're not as iconic, obviously, but come on, bro. Mobb Deep got some classic. They got a classic album. The second album was a classic.
We
really. But we'll do a different stream on that.
Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to give him. Yeah, I mean, you're from New York, man, and I'm on your channel tonight. So I'm trying not to go in on New York. I can't go in. I mean, I get that's the mecca and all that of hip hop. That's your background. So I think what I do.
It's yours too.
Well, I mean, all right. Maybe I take some comments about that. So after we get done with all of our points, so then you can kick me out of the chat. I got everything out by then. You know what I'm saying?
Funny. Yo, Beatrice on the check-in. We got Justin Mitchell on the check-in.
Okay.
We got Cherry Love on the check-in.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Justin Mitchell. Okay. That's what's up. And who is it? Beatrice Wells, you say?
Oh, it's Beatrice, I should say.
Beatrice. Okay.
Beatrice. She's congratulating you on your newest edition.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. I'm at a log. I can't see the chat from where I'm at. No, wait.
It's in the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong thing. Okay, cool. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. So yeah, we had started this series a couple weeks ago now, and then actually the night we were recording, it was like under threat of at any moment my wife's water could break and that just shut it all down, and I had to dip out. But we made it through that session. Then my wife thankfully had our fourth child, you know what I'm saying, and that kind of threw us off a little bit, but for a good reason, obviously, you know what I'm saying. I ain't mad at that. And we back at it, man. We back at it.
Adam's trying to create his own house church organically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very organic.
From the ground
up, man. So nah, man, this is it for me, man. I'm up to 4 now. I'm done, man. It's the final 4, brother.
The final 4.
Final 4, bro. It's the final 4, dog.
We shall see. Famous last word.
Oh, we gonna see. All right. I'm telling you, I know who we not gonna see.
Number 5.
I know who we not gonna see.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh man, so I'm sharing this to the sharing this around.
Yeah, keep doing that. I'm saying what's up to people in the chat. Tim A's on the check-in.
Tim A. Okay.
Yeah, we got some people starting to fall in. This is good. Okay. Please share the link, guys. Please share the link. Everybody
Yeah. I see someone who said they're sharing the link. I think it was Sister Cherry said she's sharing it. So appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm saying I know my man Matt Jackson gonna pop through.
Of course.
Gotta see my man Matt Jackson in the building. And I'm trying to share it with the woke group.
So we got Mr. Phil Fox on the check-in. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. What's good?
We got what's this? Michael Upshore. If I said your name wrong, please forgive me. Okay, he's new. I haven't seen him before. That's what's up.
Okay, yeah, get some new people. Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's what it is. That's one thing, I mean, as we kind of get started here. Now granted, we got a lot to get to.
Yeah.
Tonight. But yeah, I do want to say it's exciting for me. I'm trying to withhold certain things. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes that I can't. I've got a habit of spilling the beans on things, but I'm trying to.
Oh, you got some tea? You got some tea, bro?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll talk later.
We'll talk later, man. But I will say that it is an exciting time to be a Christian. It is an exciting time to be a part of this urban apologetics, contextualized apologetics community. And all I'm gonna say is 2020 is about to be real.
Really?
I'm not even just talking about, what's going on with True ID. I'm talking about just for the community as a whole, man. Y'all just, buckle your seatbelts. I mean, you got some very some powerful stuff going on, man.
So you keep saying that live, people are gonna be like, "Yo, what's good?"
Yeah, that's all I can say right now. It's an exciting time to be a Christian and to be involved in this community. With that being said, and I know we got a lot to get to, and
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Here, so I'm not going to take too much time. But I cannot find the woke group. I don't know. I'm sitting here scrolling, trying. Oh, here it is.
Okay. Big up MJ Jackson. What's good, bro?
There you go, MJ Jackson. Action,
yes, sir.
Jackson.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man? But I was gonna say, man, for everybody in the chat, for everybody, shout out to J Man, he's in the building. For everybody, watching or who will watch this, I'm encouraging folks, man, to we need all hands on deck with respect to apologetics. You know what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is that there's literally, I mean, scores and scores and scores of people, scores of platforms, you know what I'm saying, that are against the faith, you know what I'm saying, online, constantly pulling people, out of the kingdom or into the kingdom of darkness, however you want to look at it. And shout out to Michael Ferguson. What's going on, bro? And we need all hands on deck, man. We can't do it with 5 people. You know what I'm saying? We just can't. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't ever want people, and actually I can speak for everybody that I know who's doing urban apologetics right now. You know what I'm saying I can confidently say that they would all agree with me in saying that we don't want to be superstars or anything like that. You know what I'm saying we don't want to be the faces of urban apologetics. We want everybody, you know what I'm saying, to get their hands dirty, get out here and preach this gospel. We need as many people as possible. You know what I'm saying it doesn't mean you have to have a YouTube page to do it. I mean, it just, take these things that you learn and put them to work. You know what I'm saying? Get out here, minister to somebody. You know what I'm saying we need as many folks out here as we can, man. So I just want to, encourage people. We are all called, going to Matthew 28. We're all called to be, spreading the gospel. I'm saying we are all called to that great commission. That's a mandate for the church. I'm saying not for the EPMD of apologetics. So I just had to get that out there, man. Just had to get
facts. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all ministers of reconciliation, right? We are ambassadors for Christ.
Yes,
God making his appeal through us,
right.
And I said this before, but as great and powerful as your personal testimony about how Christ changed you is, for a lot of people that doesn't resonate with them. People have some serious questions that they need answered, and we need to be equipped to answer for the hope that we have.
Right.
And this is just one aspect of training for that to happen. So
right. I mean, just look at the people we got in the chat. I mean, I feel, I don't want to call everybody out, but perfect example, you know what I'm saying? And if I miss anybody, my mistake, but I know for a fact, like Matt Jackson got a channel.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? He's been putting in work, dealing with worldviews, Kemeticism, dealing with just, different approaches to apologetics, putting sources out there. I mean, he's got great content on his channel.
Yep.
Sister Cherry, I'm saying, the one of the Shield Squad OGs. You know what I'm saying? Sister Cherry was before there was a True ID podcast, before, you know what I'm saying, I was doing the stuff that I'm doing. I'm saying Cherry was already with the Shield Squad putting in work, specifically, with the Hebrew Israelites.
Right.
And certainly I've heard testimonies from her being involved with females in the Hebrew Israelite movement and being able to counsel them and see people come out of that. So I mean, I'm just saying that to say, I mean, just even in this chat right now, I'm saying we've got people who are in my opinion underappreciated in terms of what they've been contributing. I consider myself to be a latecomer. You know what I'm saying? There's people that was grinding before me, so I always want to give respect to people who's been out here grinding, man. So we're a community. You know what I'm saying? We're a team, and we need to remember that and never lose touch of that. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah,
no doubt. So let's get cracking, man. Let's get the people what they came for.
All right, let's go. Yeah, let's get it. So I guess you want to well
yeah, I mean, so that everybody understands, we're continuing our deep dive analysis of what basically is what the greatest debate of the year, with
yeah
Vince Bantu versus Jabari Osaze. And again, shout out to Jabari for really being a part of this amazing conversation. And I also want to say thanks to Mr. Coleman for allowing me to be part of the strategy / research team for Team Bantu, so I could be a part of it and be a witness to, history in the making. So thank you, sir, for allowing me to be a part of
Oh
this.
yeah, man. Yeah, team, man. Yeah.
And yeah, so we're just here to continue. We're gonna hit round two, and we're gonna look and focus more on Vince Bantu's argumentation, how he put his argument down for round two. So, Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, I'm sure we'll probably circle back around to Bantu's round one segment because we didn't cover that before, but we're going to circle back around to that. But what's happened is obviously because I was out for a while, we fell behind, and so we want to kind of play catch up. We want to at least knock out, the round two, which is already dropped. And we don't want to get so far behind that we're just like way out the box when round three drops. Which I'm pretty sure should be pretty soon. But with that being said, we don't want to be too far behind. But yes, we will go back to Bantu's round. But his first round was pretty straightforward. And if anybody wants to get a better understanding of where he was coming from in that round, they can check out the True ID Podcast YouTube channel. And where I interviewed him, I did a post debate interview, and we broke down his perspective on each round. And so he really kind of deals with that there. So we'll kind of leave that there for now. But we definitely wanted to get to the second round, particularly Bantu's approach to it, because I really feel like he raised the bar in some interesting ways, and so we definitely want to address that. Yep. So I guess we want to get into the video, or
yeah, so we can have the proper context. So okay. So you can share.
Okay, so I'm gonna share that. So as I'm sharing this here, let me turn my volume up because I remember that was the issue last time. And I think last time when I magnified the screen, that's not the word I'm looking for, but expanded the screen or whatever, I think it blacked out. So this time I'm just gonna leave it in the small way and just kind of go from there.
There's a button in the broadcast that says, I think, play audio. Once you start sharing your screen, it's in the bottom of the screen when you share it. If you can't see it, then do it the old school way. But there is a button.
Okay. I'm looking like an old man trying to read this stuff right now.
Yeah.
Terrible. Okay. Yeah. So getting ready to share this here, and the
I see it.
The title. Okay, is up.
I think I gotta present it. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the title. Can you still see it? Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So the title of the second round, or the topic, or debate question of the second round is Christianity a copy of Kemet? And by Kemet, I'm assuming they mean I think what's meant there is Kemeticism. I'm saying so. I was not the spiritual system of Christianity is not a copy of Kemet, the place, obviously. So we're talking about Kemeticism. Is Christianity a copy of Kemeticism? All right. So I'm going to play a segment, and then we'll just kind of
as to the second question, is Bisrat a copy of ancient Egyptian or Kemetic religion? There's really 2 points that I want to make about this, and I'll just show some examples to kind of explain this. Right? I noticed we have the same picture, and so we also have the picture of the conversion of the temple of Philae to a Christian imagery, and the point that I want to make with that is, and why I show that, is that there's 2 simple points I want to make in response to this question. Number one is that ancient Egyptian practitioners of traditional religion and Nasrawi alike did not see their faith as the same or an imitation of one another, but they both had a very clear sense that these religions were different, that were fundamentally distinct. There was nobody saying that this is an imitation or a copy. That's number one, and that's what the picture's meant to describe. Like, otherwise, why would Coptic Christians want to carve out crosses and not see traditional symbols, unless they saw it as a different faith that they want to disassociate themselves from, not copy. The second point I want to make is that the question itself actually betrays a certain modern myopia. And what I mean by that is that to ask the question, is Bisrat a copy of Kemet, is an inherently modern question that, especially when talking about in an ancient context, is actually an inappropriate question to ask. It's not the right way to think about it. People in the ancient world did not think in these terms. People in the ancient world did not think in terms of, hey, you guys are copying us. That seems similar to what we're doing, and therefore it's inferior, or therefore it's a copy. People didn't talk like that. They didn't think like that. That's a modern invented idea that finds no resonance in the ancient world. That's my 2 points, and I'm going to just show you some evidence of that.
Okay,
First of all,
I'm gonna pause right there because so the bulk of what I have to say. Let me. I guess I should unshare that maybe. Let's see.
Well, are you going to show your slides now, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to my slides.
All right, so keep it as is, so you can show your slide.
Okay, I got to figure out how do I switch slides. Actually, I don't know how to do that. That's a good question. Okay, I might have to stop this one and then try it again. I don't know how to switch between.
You want me to remove you from the screen?
Technical issues. Okay, let me just I'll just do that. Yeah, and I'll just share it again. So you should get another thingamajig. Okay, so the bulk of what I have to say is gonna probably be on the front end. So I'm assuming most people, have probably watched the debate, or maybe they haven't. You know what I'm saying? But I think that this round right here, man, really gives us an opportunity to examine some things that I've been wanting to say for quite some time in regard to apologetics anyway. So I definitely want to get into that. Okay. All right. So can you see? Okay. Is it sharing my screen?
I gotta do that. Hold on. All right. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So what I want to do is, so we just heard Bantu lay out the two main arguments.
Can you make it bigger? Can you present?
Possibly. That's a good question. I'm not sure how to do that. What if I go like this? Does that help?
No.
Still doesn't help?
It's smaller now. Making it small. Okay. All right. Right. The other way. There you go.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Right,
yeah,
cool.
Let's leave it like that. Yeah.
We still new at this, y'all. My bad. My bad. Okay, so basically what I want to do is, for anybody who joined us last time, you're saying when we was on my channel, I wanted to break down the structure of the argument. Okay, because in a debate, it's not just two people fussing at each other, right? What it ought to be about is two people trying to present a case that is persuasive on the basis of evidence and reason. Okay, that's what argumentation is all about, right? Now, if you show up to a debate or if you're involved in an exchange and somebody is just really good at ranting or just emotional or whatever, maybe on an emotional level, what they're saying may be persuasive, but that's not the kind of thing that really should be moving us from one position to, upholding one view to then adopting another view. What we ought to be doing, I'm saying, is looking at what is the argument being made, and is there evidence and sound reason put on the table such that we should accept the conclusion of that argument. Okay, so when we went to now again, I'm just throwing out this disclaimer. I'm saying if this is your first time hopping on the train with us, when my man said that we're doing a deep dive, he wasn't joking. Like we really are, going point by point. Because this debate just gives us so much to chew on, and it's just a really good teaching opportunity. So we're taking our time with it, y'all. So yep. I'm just letting you know, if you're along for the ride, be along for the ride, So anyway, so just like I did in the first round, I want to look at the structure of the arguments that are being made, and I want to, ask the question: are these guys able to make their are to kind of fill in the gaps for us such that we can agree that they've made a strong case. So with that being said, so what do we have going on here, in round 2? Okay, the question is Christianity a copy of Kemet? Right now, as you watch round 2, what you find is there's 2 competing explanations as to the dynamic between Christianity and Kemet. Okay, there's 2 competing explanations as to what is the proper way to understand the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. On the one hand, you have Dr. Bantu, who's saying that the proper way to understand it is that Christianity is not a copy of Kemeticism. Brother Jabari is taking the other position, that the proper way to understand the dynamic between the two is that Christianity is a copy of Kemeticism. Okay, and so in this round, we're looking at we're just looking at Bantu for right now, and then we'll obviously we'll be getting to Jabari in our next session or whatever. But right now, what I want to know is can Bantu fill in the blank of ... Therefore, Christianity is not a copy of Kemeticism. Can he fill in that blank for me and give me some evidence and reason by which I can say, no, the proper stance for me to take, the reasonable stance for me to take is that Christianity is not a copy of Kemeticism. Okay. Now that's the goal he's trying to get to. Now, in the last round, one thing that I talked about is, again, providing evidence and reason to get us to that conclusion. What I want to focus on right here, and this is very important. Okay. I'm not going to go on too long of a rant, but maybe a 30-second rant.
Okay. Go for it.
One thing I cannot stand. Okay. One thing it's like nails on the chalkboard for me. Okay. Is that when people are doing apologetics, right? They want to depict it as if it's like a sitcomish kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Where you got punchlines, mic drop moments, and then everything is in a nice little bow within about 30 minutes or so. You know what I'm saying? That is not how apologetics always works out. I'm saying sometimes there's long drawn out conversations, there's points and counterpoints, and it gets, it's not all cookie cutter and clean all the time. You know what I'm saying? We can't expect that every conversation that you get into, you're going to give a 10-second answer. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, gotcha. You know what I'm saying? And then the conversation is over. That's not real life.
Right.
So with that being said, what we need to be doing is we need to be equipping ourselves. We need to get equipped such that we can engage in conversations and walk people through, I'm saying, some of their mistakes so they can get to where, we want them to go, which is toward the truth. Okay. Right. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Okay. If you watch Adam Coleman, you'll notice that I take a certain approach. I'm saying I might have a certain number of tools in my toolbox that I'm going to use to get somebody to, recognize that God exists, Jesus is Lord, Jesus rose from the grave, so on and so forth. There's going to be tools in the toolbox that I use, but there's more tools in the toolbox that are at the Christian's disposal than what I tend to use. Okay. So
did you just refer to yourself in the first person? Is that what just happened?
Yeah, I might have, man.
Wow.
God, that's terrible.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Continue.
I don't want to be that guy. I'm not trying to be that guy. Adam Coleman is not trying to be that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so for example, you have what you would call classical apologetics, you know what I'm saying, or evidentialism, you know what I'm saying, whereas you might have some people will go the presuppositionalist route, or even within those two broad schemes, there's a number of different techniques and strategies that people can employ, and they're not necessarily one is better than the other. It just depends on the situation. Okay. Right. But the thing I'm trying to get across is what you want to do is we need to be equipping ourselves and giving ourselves as many tools in the toolbox as we possibly can, such that in any given situation, we're able to, provide, the case for Christianity that we're capable of providing. Okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna go to my next slide. Is there anything you want to jump in here, or are you good? Or
no, I mean it's about training yourself and helping others to think it through. Listening at the claim and walking it towards its most logical conclusion, and let's see where it leads. Right. Just learning that process. So,
right there it is. Okay, cool. So there's many different ways to skin a cat. That's the bottom line that I'm trying to get across there. Now, with that being said, I want to go to my next slide here. Okay. In order to understand, oh shoot, let me get over to the screen. In order to understand what Bantu is doing, okay, we need to understand that there's different types of what we call defeaters. Okay, so if somebody is trying to make a claim against Christianity, and you're going to make a counter argument, that's what I mean by defeater. I'm saying you're going to defeat their claim against Christianity or any given thing. We're talking about Christianity right now, so I'm just kind of keeping it this definition tight to that. So somebody's making a claim against Christianity. We want to give a defeater. We want to defeat that claim, and there's different kinds of defeaters. Okay, for anybody wants to check me on it, you can go to the Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy. And you'll find these definitions. I'm breaking it down simply here, but Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy, you'll find the same thing. There's different types of defeaters. Now, I'm just going to read the different definitions, and I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit. All right. So on the first hand, you have what's called rebutting defeaters. Okay. Now, a rebutting defeater is a counterclaim where you directly attack the conclusion or the thing believed by trying to show that it is false. Okay, so somebody says 2 + 2 is 3. I'm saying no, 2 + 2 is 4. Right? I'm saying I'm going to demonstrate that the claim that they made is factually untrue. That's what you're dealing with when you're talking about a rebutting defeater. That's one kind of defeater. Okay, but then you also have an undercutting defeater. Okay, now an undercutting defeater is different in that it's not trying to directly attack the thing that's being believed, but it's trying to show that the reasons that somebody has for whatever belief they hold, those reasons are invalid, or those reasons just aren't good reasons. Okay. So it's basically like taking the legs up from under somebody's reason, so to speak. So let's say that, you and I are, let's say you and I are walking down the street, and somebody says, hey, there's Johnny just won $1 million. What I'm saying, through the lottery, right? That might be true, maybe it's false. What I'm saying? But you come to find out that Johnny didn't buy a ticket. Johnny Johnny's cousin comes along right after that and says Johnny never bought a ticket. What I'm saying? So you might have now a good reason to suggest that, well, maybe it's not true that Johnny won $1 million. What I'm saying? Like, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but now I've got good reason to doubt that he did. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
The way I was looking at your slide, it reminded me of like a rebutting defeater would be being a good counter puncher in the ring, whereas undercutting defeater is that person doesn't even make it to the ring. They can't even really.
It could be. Well, one thing that in the discussion I had with Bantu, what I'm saying, we were talking about MMA because he does MMA. And for anybody who watches MMA, one of the strategies is if you have a guy who can hit really hard, one of the strategies is maybe not just to block the punch, but to kick the guy in the leg several times. You use leg kicks. Right. Because if you use leg kicks, then that's going to cause that person not be able to put weight on the leg, and then they can't hit as hard. Right. And so you're taking a roundabout approach, right, to defeating that attack. You know what I'm saying?
Cobra Kai, sweep the leg.
Yes, sweep the leg. Exactly. Right. You're taking a roundabout approach. So again, a rebutting defeater is where you're going to go at the claim and demonstrate that it's false. And an undercutting defeater has to do with saying, you know what, you, sir, or you, ma'am, who's making this argument, here's why the reasons for your argument fail. I'm saying you don't have good reason for the conclusion that you came to. So it's not just the conclusion is false, but the way that you got to the conclusion is problematic. And maybe that's a better way to look at it. So like back in the day, I was just talking about this not too long ago in one of my recent videos, like back in the day when you were doing math work, right? Mm-hmm. And you turning your paper, your teacher didn't want to just see answers, what I'm saying? They wanted you to show your work. Right. You see what I'm saying? Right. So there might be some times where, the critique that they gave you is not necessarily that your answer was wrong, but there was something wrong in terms of how you did your equation. And that's where the critique was. I'm saying, so how you arrived at your answer, that's where the problem lies. Right. Okay. Now undercutting defeater, that's what we're trying to get at. We're trying to demonstrate that how you arrived at your conclusion, there's a flaw there. Right. There's a flaw in your reasons for how you arrived at your conclusion. Right. I just want to make sure we kind of take stock. I don't want to move too fast. I mean, maybe put some ones up if y'all are kind of following with me. If y'all understand the difference between a rebutting defeater and an undercutting defeater.
I think it's a matter also of just logic and reason, right?
Absolutely.
If it's a malformed question that's not logical, then it's kind of hard to address it. You know, something is fallacious.
Right.
That's
going to come up. Exactly.
Like an example is the whole begging the question fallacy, right? It's like,
sure.
You know, Adam, from a scale of 1 to 10, how dumb are you? Like, I'm begging the question because I'm assuming that you're dumb, that's correct, right? So it's like that's malformed. It's like, so I can't even answer that question because the question is not sound. It's not reasonable.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? So
if it's like, when's the last time you smoked crack? You know,
right.
There was no first time. That's what I'm saying. So what do you mean when's the last time? You know, but anyway.
I see some ones. I think people are tracking with us, bro. People are
good. Okay. So, all right. So I want you guys to think about this. Okay. So now that we understand the difference between a rebutting defeater and an undercutting defeater, here's how I want to apply that to what's going on here in the debate. Now, what most of us are familiar with are rebutting defeaters. You know what I'm saying? And so in the context of, specifically this is Christianity a copy of Kemeticism? A rebutting defeater would be something like, okay, Jabari, and I don't want to get too far ahead because we'll address this in his section, but Jabari says that that Jesus and Horus were both born on December 25th. Now, we know that's garbage because there is no documentation anywhere in the Bible, nor in any Christian doctrine of any sort that suggests that Jesus was born on December 25th. And I can also demonstrate that, Horus's birthday was celebrated towards the end of August. So on both counts, that parallel that he's trying to draw is false because it can't be founded in primary sources for either Jesus nor Horus. Okay. Right. So that claim is just flat out false. It's incorrect. That would be an example of a rebutting defeater. You said X, but really Y is the case. So therefore what you said is false. That's right. A rebutting defeater in this instance.
Right.
And so in approaching this question, this section of the debate, I'll be honest with you. I anticipated that's the approach that he was going to take. I mean, you and we were part of the team, and we prepared him for this kind of attack from Jabari. We knew where Jabari was going to be coming from, and so I expected him to go the rebutting defeater route. And I was very surprised, when he didn't. It was very interesting. I was like, oh snap, he's going a whole different direction here. And when I thought back on it, what I realized is I work through arguments and say, okay, well, what's going on? I try to track him, just like somebody who's watching sports. You want to watch the play and this little bit, you want to break it down. I was like, oh, okay. So instead of taking the rebutting defeater route, he took the undercutting defeater route. Okay, that's what he's doing. He's saying that, okay, Jabari is going to put all these things into place, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. But basically what Bantu is saying is that, okay, I'm going to offer 2 points that are going to undermine whatever reasons that you give, the explanation that you present to try to account for the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. Okay, Jabari is going to give his account, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the legs from under his account, saying with these 2 points right here. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my next slide and we'll get back to the video in just a second, but I want to make sure that I lay this groundwork, so we understand what it is that Bantu is doing. And let me say, quite frankly, it was a genius move. I didn't anticipate that he was going to do this, quite frankly, what I'm saying? Yep. But looking at it, there's no way that Jabari would have anticipated it either. I don't think, because I've never seen anybody try it this way. You know what I'm saying? Now I could be wrong. I can't say what Jabari's been exposed to, but I've never seen it. And so I don't think that he would have been prepared. So I don't know if that's what Bantu was going for, like a surprise attack or not, but it really was a genius move, quite frankly.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't see it coming. Okay, so let me go to, all right, so again, let's go back to Bantu's main argument. So he says in the video that we just saw, where he's laying out his 2 claims, he's saying that both Christians and Egyptians had a clear sense that their spiritual traditions were distinct. As in they're not copies. Both Christians and Egyptians, he said, had a clear sense of that. Okay. And then secondly, he says the notion that Christianity was a copy of Kemeticism. Now, I'm kind of just, fleshing it out a little bit to explain where he's coming from, but y'all can go back and look at the video. I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but this is kind of how I'm interpreting what he said. The notion that Christianity was a copy of Kemeticism, in particularly in some negative sense, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But that notion is just a wrong way to understand the dynamic between them, and it reflects modern sentiments rather than what primary sources convey about how it was understood in the ancient world. That point is really key. Okay, because in the first point, what he's doing is, I'm going to highlight this right quick. In the first point, he's saying that, the issue is Kemet and Christianity, right? And he's saying that the two parties involved that we're talking about here, they didn't see Christianity and Kemet as being a copy. And then in the second point, he expands that out. He's saying, okay, not only do Christians and Egyptians not see them as being the same, but this whole notion of copying in the ancient world in general, I'm saying that sort of approach to understanding that the dynamic between the two would have been foreign to how they saw that dynamic. I'm saying, so he begins with the two parties involved, and then he pans out a bit to deal with the ancient world, at that time in general. I'm saying, so he's making two very important claims here. And so in what way are these undercutting defeaters? How does that work? Well, the reasons that Jabari is going to attempt to bring that Christianity is a copy has to do with similarities in chronology. I'm saying he's going to want to show that, this X, Y, and Z is like Horus, and that X, Y, Z is like Jesus. Look, there's a similarity there. Y'all have a problem. Or he'll want to say things. He says this all the time. The Kemetic spiritual system was around for 3,000 years or whatever before Christianity, and y'all got a similarity here. So we came chronologically before, therefore y'all must have copied from us. And he wants to make that sort of inference. Those are the kinds of reasons that Jabari would want to give. Now, how do Bantu's points undercut what Jabari wants to do? Okay. Well, first of all, both worldviews saw themselves being distinct, right? So the idea is that if anybody would pick up on the similarities, and make the inferences that Jabari is trying to make, it would be those people who were right there and had the most interaction with the belief systems, the practitioners. I'm saying you would expect to see this sentiment that he's trying to impose upon that time. You would think that would be borne out in terms of how they engaged in their religions and one with another. So it would be like saying, let's say that there was a car accident, right? And somebody's telling me about, like, oh man, it was terrible, it was a car accident, so on and so forth. And then somebody else enters the room and says, hey, I was there. I saw the whole thing from start to finish.
Right.
The person who is giving me this information initially, it might be interesting, but if somebody who was an eyewitness comes in the door, well, naturally, I'm going to give them priority in terms of being a reliable source, because this is a person who was actually there and can tell me firsthand exactly what occurred. You see what I'm saying? So likewise, when we're talking about, the two parties involved, Egyptians and Christians, Bantu is saying, look, if anybody should know, or be articulating things about similarities and so copying from so, you would think that it would be those who were boots on the ground, so to speak, right there. Right. But you don't see it. You don't see that. You see something else. They don't see it that way, which gives us reason to say, well, dag, if they don't see it, then we've got some reason to say that maybe there's something going on in that dynamic that is not reflective of what Jabari is trying to get across. Okay, does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so right now I'm just articulating what Bantu is doing, and we'll kind of get to whether he meets his mark or not, and after we play some of the video.
It also undercuts Jabari's credibility as a historian. Throughout the debate, he makes the claim that he is a historian, that he's very well aware of ancient history. Well, if you are, right, you wouldn't smuggle in 21st century thinking into antiquity, right? No historian worth his degree would ever do that. He would actually look at what those people from that particular period, how they saw things, as opposed to how we would see things.
Right. Right, exactly. Now I'm going to introduce a word. I meant to put it on the slide, but I'm glad you brought it up. But it's the word anachronism or anachronistic. You know what I'm saying? Something that's out of its time. So let's say that if you pick up a novel, if I send you a novel through the mail and I say, hey, this novel was written in 1702, right?
Okay.
You're reading this novel that's supposed to be 200-300 years old, and you get to page 5 and it says, yeah, I was talking to an old boy on the cell phone and he told me that the game was coming on at 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's
Something's wrong.
something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
Something is way off, because that's an anachronism. It's something that's out of its time. Okay. And so that's what we're talking about here. Maybe we could play back what Bantu said. For people who remember, he said that, this notion has no resonance in the ancient world. That's
right.
what he's talking about. He's saying that this idea that and let me go back to it. Okay, that's why I put particularly in some negative sense. Okay, this idea that Christianity was a copy, you know what I'm saying, from Kemet, or this idea of copying, particularly in some negative sense. Okay, like right. Therefore it's inferior, or therefore we ought not fool with it. That whole sentiment is out of place from a time standpoint. You're basically taking it from today and you're importing it into ancient history. That's not what historians ought to be doing. You know what I'm saying? That's not what historians ought to be doing. What you want to do is say, okay, let's find out what was going on at the time, and then we can work our way towards what are some responsible conclusions that we can come to based upon that.
Right.
But you want to start out with we first want to know what's going on before we try to put our interpretation on what's going on.
Right.
If that makes sense. Okay. And so that's what Bantu was getting at there. He's saying it's anachronistic. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna finish out here. This is the last slide, and then we'll get to the videos. We'll kind of work our way through. But like I said, I at least wanted to kind of take stock of some things, and then we'll go here in a minute. But so to that second point, when he's kind of broadening the point, people of that era didn't see it that way, but rather took a different approach. Now here's the issue. Now again, going back to what I was saying about explanations, if you look at this whole debate section, what you have two competing explanations about what's the proper way to understand the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. Is the copyist perspective that Jabari wants to put forward, is that the proper way to understand the dynamic? Now, here's the thing. If you got two competing explanations, okay, about this dynamic, right? If we have good reason to affirm, and by good reason, I'm talking about drawing from historical sources, primary sources. I'm saying explanations that account for what we're seeing in the historical record. If you have good reasons to affirm Bantu's position, I'm saying in terms of his explanation about what's going on in the ancient world, then that undermines any reason that you would have to affirm what Brother Jabari is trying to put on the table. If I've got, because they can't both be right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They can't both be right.
Right.
Okay. So the question is, if I've got good reason, drawing from their primary sources, I'm saying to understand the dynamic between the two in one way, then that's good. Then that gives me cause to reject Jabari's position. Okay. And so now, with that being said, I just want to add in this last part. I think I got him. Okay. Yeah. So it becomes a battle of explanations. Now, what we could say, if I were Jabari, and this is just the way I think, I'm not trying to cast doubt in anybody's mind, but this is just how I think. Okay. When I think about arguments, I try to argue against myself. I'm saying I try to create the best argument for the other side and then battle against it. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want cheap, easy victories. That's not what you want to do. You want to get at the truth. I'm saying as best you can. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but really just challenging your own thinking is a way to do that. Okay. So if I were Jabari, or if I were somebody watching who wanted to, maybe contradict what I just said, then I would say, well, just because, the ancients didn't see it that way, didn't see it as being copied, that doesn't mean that we can't. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we have better information, or maybe we got, hindsight is 20/20 or something like that. We know more about blah, 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 and so we can still conclude that it's a better explanation. My response to that would be this. Okay, that's right. I'll come back to that. So my response to that would be this. At the end of the day, again, it's a battle of explanations. Okay. Sure, if you want to make a case that there's copying going on, you still got to prove that case. It's not my job to prove the case for you. You can't just say, well, maybe I'm saying there's still some copying going on. You still have the job of presenting an explanation and evidence to that would persuade somebody to think that the dynamic is better accounted for by some sort of copyist perspective. And that's Jabari's section of the debate. But we'll get to that. I'm saying so then we're going to have to ask the question, does he do that? Now, if Jabari cannot provide an explanation, or evidence, that his explanation of what's going on there is the one that's to be accepted, and Bantu has given me an explanation as to what's going on there that is derived from primary sources, and I'm weighing out who wins this side of this segment of the debate, I'm going to go with the one who gives me the primary sources and explanations that account for what I'm seeing in the historical record. I'm not going to go for the guy who says, well, maybe I'm saying it was a copyist type of a situation, but doesn't give me primary sources and doesn't give me good reason to believe that his side is true.
Right.
So, that being said, I'm going to suggest to you that between this session that we're doing tonight and what we see in the in our following session, when we break down Jabari's claims, at the end of round 2, I would suggest to you that between the two explanations, Bantu's and Jabari, I'm going to say that Bantu provides a lens through which we can understand the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism that is drawn from primary sources and doesn't overstep those primary sources, by the way. I'm saying, and he does so in a fashion that outpaces, I'm saying, and just overcomes anything that Jabari brings to the table, because as we'll see, Jabari will be unable to do so. And so therefore, in that round, I'm going to say that Bantu has provided a better explanation. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be my longest, somebody said historians don't quote Wiki. Oh, snap. That must have been somebody who was there. Shots fired. Shots fired. Woo! All right, so that was good, man. How's everybody feeling? We still good, y'all? Okay, just throw some ones up. You know what I'm saying? If we still good, So I guess with that being said, what I'm going to do, we're going to keep score a little bit. I think I got some slides here. Let me check one more thing. Make sure did I take that slide up? Okay, good. Yeah. All right. So we're going to keep score as Bantu goes through his presentation. We want to take a look at, does he give us reason to affirm his first and second point? So is it the case? Do we have good reason to think that these two worldviews, or these practitioners of these worldviews had a clear sense that their worldviews were distinct? And secondly, does it give us reason to think that there's, the copyist perspective that Jabari, is trying to push forward, like some sort of nefarious, sort of a deal or something to be frowned upon? Is that the way that the ancient folks would have looked at it? So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this screen.
All right. And
we'll get back to the video. Did you want to say something while I load that up, or?
I mean, again, it's always, I think the Christians have to be reminded that when it comes to even your little debates, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, you don't always have to do the heavy lifting in the conversation. Once the person makes a claim, any claim, the onus is on them to back up said claim. And I can't tell you how many fights have incurred just by asking somebody, wow, that's interesting. How did you come to that conclusion? Because people are not used to explaining their points. Mm-hmm. A lot of people live in their own little echo chamber with their friends and their little bubble, everybody's right in their bubble. But the minute you go and pop the bubble, it's like, hey, can you break that down for me? This. I understand you believe that, but how did you come to that belief? You'll see a whole lot of, hemming and hawing, and that's when, people get a little, out of hand because they're not used to explaining their worldview. And as Christians, we better be used to explaining our worldview.
Right. Or let me just add this too. One of the benefits to the undercutting defeater is because there are some instances where I may not have enough knowledge on the claim that's being made to give a rebutting defeater. I'm saying there may be So let's say if somebody's talking about something to do with science or whatever, there may be some element of science or maybe history, whatever it may be. There might be something that I'm just not familiar with that subject. You know what I'm saying? So the conclusion that the person is trying to put forward, maybe I don't have the knowledge base to refute it directly. But what can happen is a lot of times I might say, like you said, the question might be, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And then what I might find out is, well, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? One of one or more of their reasons is something that I do know that I know something about. And I can chop away at those reasons, you know what I'm saying? Such that, by the end of the conversation, even though I may not know as much about the claim that they made, I can cut through about 4 or 5 of their reasons. I'm saying it's such that at the end of the conversation, we can say, well, you haven't given me any good reason to affirm what you're saying. I'm saying, like, maybe I can study up on it further, but thus far the reasons that you gave are unpersuasive for this, that, and the third, for here, for whatever. So I guess I'll go ahead and
and the only way you get good at this is if you engage people with the gospel. If you're not being evangelistic, if you're not trying to be a minister, you're not going to get good at this.
Right.
I don't care how many books you read. I don't care how many, True ID podcasts you listen to. If you don't implement this in real time, you're not going to be good. You're not going to be effective. And even if you're not effective the first couple times, that's okay. It's a learning process. You become better as you engage, but you have to engage. So,
and I'll give you a tip. I'm not saying this for everybody, but this is just one thing that I do and been doing for a little while. I don't even know if I want to show my hand, but I just throw it out there. So, I'll give you 2 strategies. One of my favorite sayings is for every Musashi, there's a Kojiro. You know what I'm saying? Now, Musashi was
you lost me there, bro.
Yeah, I know. So
from anime, is the anime thing?
Well, no, actually, Musashi is probably Japan's most famous samurai. He was a real guy.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And what he would do is he would go around, basically fighting people. You know what I'm saying, to hone his skills. You know what I'm saying, there was another guy named Kojiro who at one point was supposed to be the greatest swordsman in Japan. So Musashi fought him, and it's like one of his most famous fights. You know what I'm saying? So my whole point is, you get sharper by employing your skills. You see what I'm saying? Like, you get sharper by actually engaging and doing it. So what I'll do is I'll scour the internet, you know what I'm saying, Facebook or whatever, and I'll find somebody who's engaging in conversations regularly, who's a little bit sharper than I am.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I go at them. You know what I'm saying? And so I'll go at them. And, my goal is, I know they're going to hit me with something that I don't know the answer to, but it's going to force me to go back and study, get a little sharper. And then I go back at them again. You know what I'm saying? I find them, I go back at them again. And I keep doing that until I'm able to, on that particular topic that person is sharp in, that I'm able to go ahead and get them. And then I go find somebody else. That's what I do. I do it all the time. I don't have as much time to do it now because I've got like the podcast and all that kind of stuff, but that's how you get sharper. The second way to do it is most of the time, 9 times out of 10, now this may not work for everybody, but 9 times out of 10, if somebody hits me with something on Facebook, if I'm going to engage in the conversation, I try to respond right away. I'm saying I practice being able to respond in the moment. I'm saying so that way, if somebody were to hit me up, I can respond to you in real time, just like I'm doing Facebook. I don't have to rely on Google. You know what I'm saying? There's some subjects I can do that better than others, but I practice that. You know what I'm saying? I study up on a particular topic, you know what I'm saying? And then when somebody engages me on that thing, I try to respond to them based on what I've already studied, not Googling here, Googling there, and so on and so forth. And so it takes a while, but after a while, then you get, sharp at that particular area. And then when somebody hits you with something else, you can do the same thing. So those are kind of 2 strategies that I use to get sharper, because you just never know when somebody might try to test you.
Yep.
So you want to be able to respond without having to, go home and get 50 different books or something like that. It just helps that way. And so I just throw that out there. That's a little 2 cents or whatever. So let me share the screen, and we're gonna keep it moving, man. Like I told you, this is a deep dive, y'all. We not playing around. You know what I'm saying? This is we getting it in, man. Yeah, for every Musashi, there's a Kojiro. My pops raised me on samurai movies, man. So that's where I get that from.
That's what's up.
Plus, 90s, man. That's Wu-Tang era, man. That's a different country.
Five Deadly Venoms and
yeah, man. Yeah.
I know.
All right, so you can see. Can y'all?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and play it, and you can let me know if you want to stop it, or I think I've got it in like 5-minute chunks or something like that. So we'll go ahead.
All right, cool.
All right.
And we were talking about violence, right? This is where I'm going to flesh that out a little bit more. But I want to make a point that I'm not sure was clear. I said it already, but I'm going to say it again because I'm concerned it might not have been clear. The question that we were asked first is Bisrat a white man's religion? We were not asked, is Bisrat immune to violence? Is Kemetic religion immune to violence?
Actually, stop it right there. You can stop it right there.
Okay.
Violence.
Stop it right there. This is great. This is something that people got to see. A tactic that somebody might use when you're debating somebody is something called a red herring. And what a red herring is a completely different subject from what the debate topic is about to get you off track and go off into this little bunny trail so that you could forget about the topic in hand. So that's what Jabari did or try to do, by implementing, but there was violence. It's like, and he's going to break that down right now, that's not the topic of discussion. So continue.
Yeah. And I just want to give kudos to you, man, because that was one of the things. So we had a conversation with Bantu like the week before, and that was one of the points that you brought out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he has his reasons for why he did it, but I think that was one of the things that you brought to the table, as a member of the preparation team, research team rather. And I think that it worked out well. I mean, this is one of those instances where I really saw that shine through, and I think it really helped to keep the debate on track. And one of the other things is that the point that he's making is that there's a distinction to be made between Christianity and Christians. You know what I'm saying, or Christianity and the church. He's using the term the Bisrat, which is an Ethiopian term to mean the gospel or the good news, and he kind of defines that in his first round. So that's what he's for anybody who's not sure what he was talking about there. That's what he's referring to when he says the Bisrat. But anyway, that's he's clarifying that distinction, and he's saying the question was not, the bad Christians do bad things or whatever. The question is Christianity itself,
right?
Is it the white man's religion? So I thought that was important, and to define terms and make those distinctions.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Is there zero evidence of violence being done by those who claim to be Nasrawi? That was not the question. The question is this religion from the white man? That was the question. So let's stay on point and actually focus on that question. And the answer, again, as I've shown you, is no. Because there were examples of Nasrawi completely outside of the Roman Empire and even inside of it that were resisting the Roman Empire. But there was definitely violence, but that's not what we're asking. That's not what we're talking about. And that's not even what we're talking about now. Now we're talking about, is it a copy? And so what I want to show you to show that, no, it's not a copy. No one in the ancient context thought that way. This is an example from a Coptic Egyptian Nasrawi theologian named Shenouda of Atrip. And this is his monastery. And it was a place where Shenouda would give public sermons where Egyptians, predominantly Nasrawi, but also practitioners of traditional religion as well, would be present. And in this public mixed setting, Shenouda addresses a particular practitioner of traditional Egyptian religion named Gesius. Gesius was a wealthy landowner, an Egyptian, who lived in the city of Pantopolis, which was close to Atrip and close to Sohag, where Shenouda's monastery was. And he is publicly addressing Gesius and talking about the differences between their religions. He says, the one whom I found in the temple of Atrip, and this would be a traditional Egyptian temple, so Christians did not stamp it out because it was still going on. Are y'all hearing that? Like, Christians did not eradicate traditional Egyptian religion. I don't think y'all understand it. Like, Christians did not eradicate Egyptian religion. It was still going on. And we see that from 5th century sources right here, that Shenouda is addressing a traditional practitioner of traditional religion. And there's still a temple. Egyptians are still going to it, and they're still praying and sacrificing and practicing the traditional religion. It's still going on. He says, the one whom I found in the temple of Atrip, worshiping Satan, and pouring out libations to him. And Shenouda is polemically, and that means like, kind of argumentatively equating traditional Egyptian gods with Satan. He's saying he poured out Satan and poured out libations to him. He scattered roses, peach branches, bunches of grape leaves, and other fragrant plants in that place. That defiled one, he's talking about Gesius now, immediately spat at him, being Jesus, when I advised him to believe in Jesus. And he blasphemily said that the great deeds that the Lord of all, Jesus, did Apollonius of Tyana and Plato did as well. So what Gesius is saying right now, as Shenouda is trying to convince him to become a Christian, is Gesius is basically saying, I'm good on Jesus because I prefer Apollonius of Tyana and Plato to Jesus. So I'm good. I kind of like my own religion. And this kind of demonstrates what I'm talking about, how people in the ancient world thought. Deities were often localized to particular nations, particular cities, and they were often associated with particular elements of nature or different things they might want, like kind of incantations or prayers for healing or for fertility or for crops or all these different things, right? And also they were often mixed and often associated with other gods from other places, and this happened in Egypt as well as everywhere else in the ancient world. And so Christianity is not only not a copy of Egyptian religion, it is actually quite distinct, not only from Egyptian religion, but also from all ancient religion. And here's the other thing. Notice that Gesius, who's an Egyptian, he associates himself with not with traditional Egyptian gods, but with Plato. So at a time where Egyptians who had been colonized by the Ptolemies already for several centuries, even before the time of Bisrat, had already begun to associate and blend together Roman gods with Egyptian gods and began to patron different Roman and Egyptian religion. But notice here that it's Shenouda who writes in the Egyptian language and actually embraces a traditional, unique form of Christianity local to Egypt that was oppressed by the Roman Empire. So there is a distinction when we talk about Bisrat, if we're talking about the perverted, oppressing Roman version of it, or the version of it that grew in Egypt, which I've already said, which itself has issues with violence. But one thing it cannot be accused of is being an extension of the white man or the Roman Empire, because it was oppressed by the Roman Empire, not only before Constantine, but after Constantine as well, from Arian leaders like Constantius and from Chalcedonian. This was the Council of Chalcedon in 451, where the Roman Church decided that Jesus is one person with two natures, one hypostasis, two physis. This the Egyptian Church did not believe in. It did not make sense to their Egyptian context. They were saying Jesus is one person and one nature. They rejected this doctrine, and they were vehemently oppressed by the Roman Empire. So this idea that the Roman Empire and the Egyptian Church were together is completely unsubstantiated in sources. They were actually at odds with each other. The Roman Empire sent in soldiers and priests together to go in and enforce Roman Christianity in Egyptian monasteries and killed Egyptian Christian monks and priests. So they were at odds with each other. And at a time when Egyptians who were Nasrawi were actually resisting the Roman Empire, Egyptians who practiced traditional religion were actually imbibing the white man's Platonic philosophy.
I'm gonna pause it right there.
Yeah, that was a nice shot. That was a nice shot.
That's a good shot. That's a good shot. Now, there's a lot that can be said about that. A couple things I'm gonna bring out. Like I said, I'm gonna be keeping score, right? So, as to his first point about about the Egyptians and the Christians seeing their belief system as being distinct. We've already got one primary source to support that. I'm saying, it's the Shenouda Gesius, account or document, right? Because notice, Shenouda is referring to this dude as like, yo, this cat he's defiled. He's doing some foul stuff over there, pouring out libations and so on and so forth. And then and Gesius, spat at, Jesus and was like, look, I ain't trying to rock with him because he ain't doing nothing for me. He ain't doing nothing different than so and so and so and so. I'm saying, so both of these, representatives of these two worldviews, we see that there is a mutual perspective that they ain't on the same side. I'm saying that they're not doing something that is in accord one with the other. You know what I'm saying? there's a distinction to be made such that they despise the other person's worldview. I'm saying, right. So those are the kinds of things. So again, they see him as being different, right?
And I, like to your point, right? It's not Bantu's idea that they were separate worldviews. Right. No, it's their idea.
Right.
So all Bantu's doing is agreeing with what these Asian people are saying. Like Bantu's not introducing a brand new idea. All he's saying is this is what they did. And this is why I believe, like, I'm allowing them to formulate my point for me. Mm-hmm. Right? There isn't a copy. The reason why I don't think it's a copy, because they didn't think it's a copy. You want to see why I believe that? Here's an actual conversation of the actual people that we're discussing. So let's hear it from them. We have an eyewitness account, and clearly they saw a distinction.
Yeah, they would know.
Don't take my word. Look at what Shanu said, right? So,
yeah, these guys would know if everything should be hunky dory between them. You know what I'm saying? But they obviously saw themselves as being different enough. And actually, he's bringing he's brought up the Roman Empire as well as like this third party, and that's going to become more pronounced as he goes on to his other argumentation. I'm going to speak on that in a minute. But one thing I do want to say here is that I just thought it was so dope. I mean, like that part he made about Platonism and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Where somebody's got you in a hold or something like that, and you got the reversal. You hit them with the reversal. That's what that was. You know what I'm saying? Because Jabari in the first round obviously is trying to make the claim that Christianity is a white man's religion, and the church and Rome was in league with one another, and full stop. That's all there is to be said about it. But here, Bantu is saying, like, look, if you're going to talk about who was more in line with Rome at the time, you got to go back to your people. You know what I'm saying? You got to talk to your boy Gessius and ask him while he's citing Greek and Roman, deities and figures and so forth. You know what I'm saying? That's what you need to talk to your people, bro. You know what I'm saying? Right. It was a really dope reversal, man. I thought it was pretty dope. Yeah. All right. So I guess you want to keep rolling, or
keep rolling, keep going.
All right, cool. All right.
Again, of demonstrating this point I'm trying to make about why it's not the right way to think about it, to think this is copying that. That was actually what ancient folk loved to do. Not copy, but complement. The idea of copy, again, is a modern idea. And it's not respected by any scholarship today, whatever their faith is. This is a rejected idea. It was understood in the ancient world to combine different religions. If different deities work for you, if they can bring the result you want, then pray to them, pray to them. This is an example of a 7th century healing.
Okay, I want to pause real quick. So again, now with the Gessius example, he used that as a source to demonstrate his first point, okay, about the distinction between both groups, understanding, have a clear sense of that distinction. Now, remember I talked about how he's broadening it out. You know what I'm saying? He's talking about how did the ancient world view it. Now, again, we're talking about two competing explanations for how to properly understand the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. And so not only is Bantu saying that the copyist, kind of nefarious, problematic perspective that Jabari would want to bring to the table, he's not only saying that that's not an historically appropriate way to interpret what's going on there. He's now giving us what he believes to be the proper account. And we'll see how he justifies that. But I'll just say he believes for now. I'm saying because we haven't gotten to the evidence yet. But what he's putting on the table is a different account. He's saying that it's not the case that these two views are to be understood as copies. What you have at the time is the way that people engage different religions, I'm saying in a pluralistic society, a society where there's many different worldviews, is they would say that, hey, as long as something is you can graft in different worldviews. I'm saying they don't have to be at odds with one another. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. It's like a buffet. I'm saying that people at the time took a buffet approach. I'm saying to Christianity or religion, period. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that is a better description. That people didn't see them as copies, but they're in some sense compatible, and we can just kind of take, mix and match.
It's like spiritual gumbo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really. That's really true.
Right.
And he's actually about to give an example of that right now. And let's go into that, and we'll come back to that point.
That was inscribed on a particular seal where the name of Jesus and Horus. This is an example of a 7th century healing charm that was inscribed on a particular seal where the name of Jesus and Horus are invoked together, side by side. This particular person, who's a practitioner of Egyptian religion, not a Nasrawi, invokes the name of Horus and Jesus together. And he says, Jesus Horus, speaking to Jesus Horus. And he has this traditional story about Horus and Isis creating a falcon to heal someone from sickness. And it's just a general healing seal. Jesus Horus, the son of Isis, went upon a mountain in order to rest. He performed his music, set his nets, and captured a falcon, a wild pelican. He cut it without a knife, cooked it without fire, and ate it without salt on it. He had pain, and the area around his navel hurt him. And he wept with loud weeping, saying, "Today I am bringing my mother Isis to me. I want a demon." This is Horus Jesus asking for a demon. Nasrawi folks ain't cool with that. They would never have prayed this. I want a demon so that I may send him to my mother Isis. The spirit went upon the mountain to Heliopolis and found his mother Isis wearing an iron crown and stoking a copper oven. Isis said to him, "Even if you did not find me and did not find my name, the true name that the sun bears to the west and the moon bears to the east, and that is borne by the 6 propitiatory stars under the sun, you would summon the 300 vessels that are around the navel. Let every sickness and every difficulty and every pain that is in the belly of En," and I think the translator was unsure about the name of this particular person, "the child of En, stop at this moment. Let every sickness stop at this moment. I am the one who calls. The Lord Jesus is the one who grants healing." So again, notice the complete association here from an Egyptian traditional religious practitioner, or what people sometimes call pagan. I don't want to use that word. I don't want to be offensive, but what other people would call pagans. Notice the complete understanding that actually Jesus and Horus can go together. It sounds kind of similar to the traditional Egyptian folks. So we can pray to Jesus and Horus at the same time. There wasn't this sense in which we don't want Jesus because he's a copy of Horus. Actually, they said, that sounds similar to Horus, so we're going to pray to both of them. So this is an example of what I'm showing, that this idea of it copying is a modern idea that has been inserted into the ancient world. Egyptian deities had interaction with other cultures, and they merged and mingled and were influenced by and influenced other religions. This was a part of the ancient world. This is why during the Ptolemaic dynasty going forward, notice that Egyptian Christians, Nasrawi, were persecuted by the Roman emperor, but Egyptian traditional religious practitioners were not.
Okay, let me pause that for 1 second. I want to deal with something that I can almost feel like when Bantu was talking about like similarities and so and so sounds like this, I can feel like Chris is going like like yeah.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, what do you mean? What are you saying, bro? I want to address that right quick. You know what I'm saying? Because I think what can happen is when you study issues all the time, and when you're knee deep in them, you know what I'm saying, you're less afraid of what's out there than somebody who just maybe is kind of just dipping the toe in. You know what I'm saying? So you might just kind of be not cavalier, but just kind of quick to say things that require explanation. You know what I'm saying, where you understand what you mean. You know what I'm saying, but the crowd may not. So I want to kind of maybe fill in some of the gaps here. So first of all, when he's talking about this Horus, Jesus, document. Now the question is, when was that document dated to? Right? It's dated to the 7th century. Okay, the 7th century. Now, chronologically speaking, now again, Jabari is trying to prove that that Jesus, was derived from Horus and so on and so, whatever. And it's interesting, actually, when we get to Jabari's second, he's actually going to cite Bantu here and say, "You're doing my work for me. You're showing with that Jesus Horus thing that it was the case." Now, again, and this is no disrespect to Jabari, but again, he kind of showed his hand when he made that comment, trying to cite Bantu as to how I'll just say, can be sloppy, what I'm saying, in terms of his historical, the method by which he approaches history. Now, the reason why I say that is if this Jesus Horus document is dated to the 7th century, that's far too late. That is far too late of a document to demonstrate that there's a causal relationship from Horus to Jesus in terms of how Jesus's narrative, if you will, was developed. I'm thinking about the Gospels and so forth. I'm saying you would need something first century or before to demonstrate, hey, we got this correlation going on, and I think that that one caused the other. But the second century is far too late, because what you have is, but after a while, especially throughout Rome, Christianity is popping. I'm saying, especially after it becomes legalized in 313 with the Edict of Milan. You know what I'm saying? Where Constantine issues the Edict of Milan that basically does away with religious persecution against Christianity, particularly. And 325 AD, you have the Council of Nicaea, by which there's this kind of it's not deadly to be a Christian anymore. So you can be a Christian, and so therefore Christianity is able to spread more freely and so forth. And so my point is, what you see is not just with Egyptians, but in I want to say in the cult of Dionysus and some of these other cults. Some would say the cult of oh man, what's that bull? I'm messing it up.
Apis bull.
Thank you. Apis, and I'm saying, and there's another one too that was born out of Iraq and so on. So I'm
Mithra. That's Mithra.
There we go, Mithra. Thank you. I'm saying, some of those traditions. I'm saying it's just like
Serapis.
Right. I'm saying, from the time that Christianity moves forward, I'm saying a lot of other religions are doing exactly what Bantu is saying and grafting in elements of Christianity into their own thing. So that you're going to have this overlap now. But unless you can show that prior to, or in the first century or before, it's far too late to demonstrate that, this Jesus Horus, document, I'm saying it's not indicative that, of there being this causal relationship from Horus to Jesus. That's what I'm really trying to say.
Right. Because causation, correlation isn't causation.
Correlation isn't causation. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Because two things are similar, it doesn't mean one comes from the other. Right? Two words sound similar. It doesn't automatically mean that one came from the other. Two paintings look similar. It doesn't mean one came from the other, right? And also, when the conscious community makes the claim that Christianity copies from ancient Kemet, it's saying it in a derogatory sense, not in the positive sense, right? What they mean is plagiarism. What they mean is they stole the concept from Kemet. But did those ancient Kemetic people think that way? No. They saw it as something that complemented their worldview. So there was no smuggling, there was no stealing. It was, honestly, they were hedging their bets, right? They were hedging their bets. I'm going to throw a prayer at everybody, and see what sticks. That was the worldview. The Christians were not doing that at all. Big difference.
Yeah, big difference, man. So so that's what I'm saying. So when Jabari later on, and people will see, I wish I should have brought it up here, but we'll see it in the next segment. But when he says, yeah, Bantu, you're doing my work for me, with the Horus Jesus thing, you are proving my point, that he just showed his cards. Like he's not handling these sources in a way that is in accord with just standard historical methodology. I'm saying a respectable historical methodology, because that source particularly is like 6 centuries too late to draw that conclusion. You know what I'm saying? And if you think that it can't, that it is not, then you're telling me something about your approach to the historical data, that it's flawed. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. The other thing I want to say too is that when you see this Jesus Horus document, it's nothing new. Like, I mean, we see what's called syncretism all the time. All the time. So I'll give you a perfect example. If you look at the in the Congo, so in was it 1491? Okay, the Portuguese get to the Congo, Catholic priests and whatnot, and you see the conversion of King Afonso. Okay, King Afonso was the Congolese, king at the time. Excuse me. So he converts. You know what I mean? And as a result, Christianity, at least, well, people can draw the distinctions that they want to, but Catholicism, Christianity, whatever, I'm saying, finds its entryway into the Congo. Now, one of the, we can see from their letters, their correspondence between the Congo and the Portuguese and the church or what have you, that one of the concerns is that the Congolese are merging Catholicism with their indigenous religions. You know what I'm saying? And so the question is, should we recognize, this church over in the Congo as being a legitimate church or not? And one of the biggest aspects of that was, well, they're merging. There's so much of this merging going on. They really need to clean that up first.
Right.
That was my point. Now, just because there's this merging of Congolese religion and Christianity or Catholicism, that doesn't mean that Catholicism or Christianity came from the Congolese religion. You see what I'm saying? Or we can even go to the Caribbean. You see Santeria, you see Vodun, you see them, appealing to the different saints and so forth. You know what I'm saying? In these various, voodoo, natural religions. Now that's going on in the Caribbean, right? Now, does that mean that Catholicism and these other things came from the Caribbean? Does it mean that it came from Santeria and these natural religions? Obviously not, right? So just because you have syncretism going on, just because you have the people of indigenous or natural religions joining, what they're doing with Christianity, that doesn't mean that those belief systems were the source of Christianity.
Right.
So, and obviously that's not the case in West Africa or the Caribbean, because clearly Christianity came about before then. So my whole point is, you can't look at this 7th century document where somebody is taking what they're doing and trying to tack Christianity onto it and say, oh, look, that's an example of, Christians, they must have stole some stuff. No, it's just that wherever Christianity went, I can show you examples in Europe. I'm saying when Christianity, first came there, and everywhere that Christianity went, the people who were already there would attempt to take elements of it and then tack it onto what they were doing.
And also, the Roman government was very clear that there was a distinction. Right. Because they only persecuted the Egyptian Christians, not the people who practiced the ancient Kemetic, religion. So they were very clear of a distinction.
Right.
There was no blurring of the lines when it came to the government. They knew who to kill. It was very clear.
Sure.
Right. So
and that's something I'm going to come back to in a minute. But you're right. And this is something that actually I alluded to earlier, but this is what Bantu is going to get to, is that not only do you have the primary players, if you will, the Egyptians and the Christians seeing each other as being distinct, but on the onlookers, I'm saying, if you will, the Roman government, the third party, they also see the distinction.
Oh, yeah.
Right. They're just coming in murking everybody. They're murking. They're specific about this group right here is adhering to something that we're trying to get rid of. So they got to go. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. Are we good?
Yeah. Let's go.
All right. Shout out to everybody in the chat. What's up, y'all?
Yeah.
Having a blast.
Think about that. Practitioners of a traditional Egyptian religion during the Roman colonial period were not persecuted by the Roman Empire, but the Christians were. Why is that? Because traditional Egyptian religion is actually a lot more similar to Roman religion than Christianity is. Christianity is actually the more unique one. When Rome colonized Egypt, it's like, oh yeah, you guys been praying to Isis. Well, we pray to Serapis. Let's just kind of put those together. They're kind of similar. So we can pray to Serapis and Isis at the same time. But who was really getting on people's nerves were the Nasrawi in the Roman Empire and the Egyptian Empire and the Persian Empire and in China and in India, all of which were saying, we worship no God but Jesus. That is the more unique posture to take in the ancient world. To say that our religion is the only right one and we refuse to render worship to no other God but Jesus is very rare in the ancient world. Very rare, with the only exception predominantly of Judaism. And that's why Jewish people were hated as well, because they said there is only one God, and Romans did not like that. And to Egyptians, that didn't make sense, because this is actually, if Nasrawi would have presented Christianity, the Bisrat, like this, they probably would have been okay with it. Because it's like, yeah, you could believe in Horus and Jesus. But the Nasrawi predominantly, this is a very rare exception. Most contemporaneous evidence from this time period shows that the majority of Nasrawi were against this kind of thing. And again, like I said in the first point, vehemently distinguished themselves from traditional religion in ways like this. Again, the practices, like we read in Shenouda, and also in this homily attributed to Athanasius, where it says, some of them, talking about, again, his word, not mine, pagans, some of them ablude their children in polluted water and water from the arena, from the theater, and moreover, they pour all over themselves water and incantations spoken over it, and they break their clay pots, claiming it repels the evil eye. Some tie amulets on their children, handcrafted by men, those men who provide a place for the dwelling of demons, while others anoint themselves with oil that is evil, and incantations and such things that they tie on their heads and necks. Again, notice the differentiation. Also, again, remember when I said I'm going to show evidence that violence was happening in both directions? Here is evidence for that. This is from a Syriac text, not a Roman text, but by a Syriac Nasrawi historian who also in the 5th century was being persecuted by the Roman emperor and had very negative opinions about the Roman Christianity. So again, there's a distinction.
You can stop it here. Stop it here.
Be clear what you're talking about.
So it's interesting, right? And this is for more high level debaters, because he does point out the red herring at the beginning of his argument, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes and stays on the topic. But now that he's destroyed the topic, he actually has time to address the red herring.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. He actually is like, you know what? I got time now. Now that I've completely destroyed whatever argument you're going to bring, with the remaining time, let me also destroy the rabbit trail that you wanted me to go on. Right. Now I have time. Because I already addressed, I laid down my premise and my conclusion. Now I got time to deal with your red herring, and I'm going to destroy that too. So that's one.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't talk about that, to be honest with you, but you're right. I mean, he's dipping back into the first round to kind of add on an extra layer there. You know what I'm saying? You got that extra time, dog. He good. He good.
Yeah.
He destroyed that argument, man. Okay, cool.
When you talk about Christianity, because as I said it before, but I just think I need to say it again. I am not here today defending Roman Christianity. I am not here defending crusading Christianity. I am not here defending slave castle building, colonizing Christianity that takes Native Americans from their home in mission schools and that tries to build borders and separates people from their families. That is not the Christianity that I am a part of. That's not what I'm defending here today.
Hey, I'm gonna just say this, right? Like at that point at the debate, I thought Eric Mason was gonna hop on the organ, dog. He started getting that homiletics wrong, boy. He's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about. I was like, man, they about to get this organ out, dog. They about to
no, Bantu was in his bag right here, bro.
He was
in his bag right here, bro. Yeah, it was man. I wish you guys would have been here for this part, because it really started becoming like church. Like,
yeah, he was getting
it. Really started becoming like church when it was crazy.
Cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild, man. Oh,
I am talking about the Bisrat that has been among black and brown and yellow people from the beginning. That wasn't perfect. That had issues itself, but it wasn't from the white man. Again, that's what we're talking about. And it wasn't a copy. Nobody thought like that. And also, there was violence going both ways. So this story tells about a particular man, a person, an Egyptian young man who was a student in a traditional religious school that, again, was a mixture of Roman and Egyptian religion. Notice again that in the 5th century, really during all late antiquity, Egyptians who still prayed to the traditional gods were actually a lot more whitewashed than the Christians were. Again.
Drop a bomb on that. Drop a bomb on that one.
Got him.
That was tough.
He's not just pulling that out of thin air. You can go back to the Gessius quote and see that. You can go back to, the whole persecution issue. They weren't being persecuted because they was already aligned with Rome. He's not just pulling that out of thin air. I'm just saying, got him. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Aurelius is a student in a grammatical school in Alexandria in Egypt that's mixing together traditional Egyptian religion with Roman religion, learning Platonic grammarian rhetorical skill, and he becomes a Christian. And this enrages the other Egyptians, and they beat him up. Egyptians who still practice traditional religion beat this young man who chose to leave the Egyptian religion and become a Nasrawi. He got beat up. So Nasrawi, yes. Do we have things that we need to admit that we've done? Black and brown and ancient and modern, yes. But folks who practice traditional Egyptian religion back then also have things that they need to speak about.
Pause that.
Version it says,
Yeah, that I mean, it was subtle, but it's such a huge point about the romanticism of ancient Kemet.
Yes, right.
And in our previous video that we did, we kind of, we lift the veil a little bit on the red light district of ancient Kemet. There was some things that were going on in ancient Kemet that people don't want to talk about. And every civilization had a red light district. But for some reason, people think Kemet was exempt from that kind of activity.
Right.
Clearly, they were not. And the thing is, it seems like it's the Christian that always has to be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
It's never the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're the ones that always are open. It's like, yes, these are the things that we have to work through. Yes, these are the blind spots and the flaws. But what about you? Yeah, I can't trust somebody who doesn't have any flaws. I'm sorry, I just can't. You know, so it was a subtle point, but also powerful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that, you know, I think that this is one thing that we all have to kind of check ourselves on. I'll talk about my own journey, you know, just not at length, but you know, True ID, you know, for me, is, you know, it stands for the real you, Imago Dei. That's my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually an expression of my own journey. You know what I'm saying? Because my thing was, it's so tempting. You know, I mean, shoot, I'm a black man in America. You know what I'm saying? I've been stigmatized. I know what that feels like. I know what it means for your color and everything that you know about you to be just downplayed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people that look like me are only supposed to be successful if you're an athlete or a rapper. You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to be intelligent. I mean, all those things. You know what I'm saying? I get that. I understand that our history has been, you know, stripped away and we've pulled off the kind of so on and so forth. I understand the emotional effects of that. But what can happen is you can be tempted to medicate that with revisionist history. I'm saying by looking into our history and painting a picture that isn't real.
We was kings. We was kings.
I was about to say, we was all kings and queens. That's not even possible, man.
We were all kings, really?
We was all kings? Of what? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not even possible, yo. Like, people, they want to, you know, paint a picture of Africa, of, you know, our origins or whatever, that's just beyond glorious. And dude, every culture, man, look, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
Facts.
All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You want to talk about slavery? You don't have to go past the African continent. I can show you slavery right there in our own history, man. Come on now. Now, that doesn't minimize what any other group, that doesn't minimize what Europeans did. It doesn't minimize what anybody did. But what it does is, and this is my whole point. I'm not going to harp on this too, but I get very passionate about it. But my whole thing is, what I had to do is realize that when you make a feature of who you are, the foundation of who you are, you're always going to run into problems in idolatry. We were made in God's image. That's got to be the starting point and the foundation upon which you build your identity and self-esteem. Then you got to build it from the truth and reality as it actually is. We're made in the image of God. Okay. And when you do that, then you find yourself not having to compensate for the ills in your ethnic history. I don't have to do that. I can read any aspect of my history, you know what I'm saying, and feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? I can look at the skeletons in the closet and feel okay, because at the end of the day, my identity is in Christ, first and foremost. And so whatever ills I find in my ethnic heritage or history, I'm okay with that, because I just see the sin nature that the Bible talks about, and I know that there's grace for it. And God has redeemed me, I'm saying, from the curse. And I can be the best of whatever it is that my people are supposed to be or created to be. The same thing. And I find the same thing with America. I'm gonna leave it at this. You know, people don't want to see the bad and the ugly of America. Often, because for them, their identity is far too founded upon the flag, you know what I'm saying, in American history. I'm saying you got to come out from amongst them, man. Like, look, first, before you're American, before you're, you know, wherever you're from, I'm saying, if you name the name of Christ, you got to go back to, I'm made in the image of God, and by covenant, I'm a child of God. I'm saying that's your foundation. So you don't have to be, you can look at any part of American history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and still not take it as a shot at you, you know what I'm saying, or a reason to feel some kind of way, because at the end of the day, regardless of what America did, your identity is in Christ. I'm saying we are a kingdom. You know what I'm saying? We are sojourners here on this earth. And then, so anytime you take a feature of who you are and make it the foundation of who you are, you will always run into problems. And that's why I see people having a hard time, going back to what you're saying about Egypt and dealing with the ills there, because they need Egypt to be pure, holy, and above reproach. On a personal level, they have an emotional need to feel that, to see Egypt in that light. Whereas all you got to do is humble yourself before the cross.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Repent. I'm saying come to Christ. I'm saying allow him to teach you who you are.
Right.
I'm saying,
justification comes from Christ, not culture.
Boom.
You know
I can't
what I
say
mean?
no better than that.
So,
Can't say no better than that. All right. Woo. Let's go. The Bantu got us preaching, man. It's contagious, bro. It's contagious.
yes, sir.
Walked up. Actually, I don't want to go over again. So I'm gonna skip this one. That's the main point I want to bring out of this. Again, is that you added a traditional Egyptian person who practiced, an Egyptian young man who practiced traditional religion, but that was very mixed up with Roman religion. And then he left that, became a Nasrawi, and he was savagely beat by other Egyptians because they didn't like it. Another example of this, Pachomius. This is one of the first people who invented monasticism, something that Europeans later stole by Benedict, and in Irish and Scottish and English monasteries. They got that from Egypt. And one of the first monastic communities was started by Pachomius, who was an Egyptian. He was born and raised in Thebes, which was at the time the capital of ancient pharaonic Egypt. He was born and raised in traditional Egyptian religion. And also, get this point, Pachomius was born in the late 200s. And this text shows us that he became a Christian, a Nasrawi, at a very young age, as a child. So that means that around the year 300, when Pachomius was a young man and he was a Nasrawi, and he had chosen freely to reject his traditional religion that his parents raised him in, at that time period, what was happening in the Roman Empire, of which Egypt was a colony? Christians were being killed by Diocletian. This is before Constantine. Emperor Diocletian enacted the worst persecution almost of any in the whole Roman Empire and was massacring Christians. So at a time, again, this is the opposite of the claim that this came from the white man, this came from the Roman Empire. To the contrary, Pachomius, an Egyptian born and raised in the traditional Egyptian capital, born and raised in traditional Egyptian religion, he would have been safer. As I already have showed you, it was cool to be a traditional Egyptian religion, traditional Roman, whatever, played all different gods. What was not cool at this time was being a Nasrawi. That could cost your life. That was what was more unique. And yet Pachomius heard the word of God, and he believed in the Bisrat, and he began to follow Yeshua of Nazareth. And this shows, again, the distinction between Bisrat and Egyptian Christianity. He says, as a child, Pachomius' parents took him with them somewhere along on the river, the Nile, to sacrifice to those creatures that are in the water. So apparently this author, the Christians, the Nasrawi in this time period, are perceiving of this as something that Egyptian traditional folks do. When those creatures raised their eyes in the water, they saw the boy, took fright, and fled away. Then the one who was presiding over the sacrifice shouted, "Chase the enemy of the gods out of here so that they will cease to be angry with us. For because of him, they do not come up." At once his parents reproached him, "Why are the gods angry with you?" The boy signed after God and went away home. Another day, they brought him with them to the temple where they were going to offer a sacrifice. After the sacrifice, they gave him a drink of wine they had poured out for the demons. But at once he vomited it out vigorously, and his parents were distressed about him because their gods were hostile to him. This is the picture we get of contemporary sources, that Bisrat was not a copy, it was very distinct, and that was actually unique, and that Egyptian traditional religion was actually more Romanized.
There it is.
Yep.
There it is.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to, do you want to say something about that? Because I want to bring my slides back up.
Nah, bring up the slides. Bring them out. Bring them out.
Bring them out. I'm going to kind of bring it all around here. Give me 1 second. Okay. And I just want to throw it out there. Like, you want to take questions too? I mean, briefly. I mean,
we could do that. I mean, well, you want to do your slides first, or you want to?
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there, man, because we got people on the chat. I don't know if anybody, want to hop in or ask questions. But
yeah, I mean, we could take a couple of questions.
I got a couple more points I'm gonna make, and then we will maybe you want to open it up.
Yeah. I see D New on the check-in. What up?
New in the building. What's happening?
So we do a quick little. We actually, if you guys have a couple of questions, let's see if we can stump Adam Coleman. You know what I mean?
Oh well, no, I mean I'm into the debate. That's anything, But it's the. I think you got to share my screen. I think.
Oh my bad. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
So Oh, is it showing? Okay.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
All right. So what I want to go back to is a point that he made. Well, first of all, like I said, we were keeping. I was keeping a score.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to go to that first. Okay. All right. So we're keeping the score about his first point and second point. Again, his first point has to do with Egyptians and Christians seeing these worldviews as being distinct from one another, not copies, being very distinct, having a clear sense of that. And what evidence did he provide? Did he give us any evidence of that? Well, yes. He went through the Shenouda Gesius document. Okay, show that both people on both sides seeing that distinction. He provided the homily of the virgins by the pseudo Athanasius, right? So that was another example. That was the one where hey, I'm getting them mixed up now, but I'll come back to that. I'm thinking two different things at one time. I'm realizing I left something off the slide here.
Okay.
There's the life of Pachomius. That's what I was thinking. I left that off. Life of Pachomius. That's that last example he provided, because we was talking about the young man who got beat up, and then there was the source right before then. I'm going to mess that up. I might have to find out what that was. I'll put it in the chat once we're done. But that was the source about the other young man who was beat up. So those last two had to do with people, one being beat up, and then the other one, Pachomius, was they were looking at him sideways because the guys rejected him. So we got four sources. You know what I'm saying, that he provides to show that both people on the Christian side and the Egyptian side saw their worldviews as being distinct. Oh yeah, so the pseudo Athanasius, that it just came back to me. That's the one where he was talking about how they pour libations out to the gods and for children and all that kind of stuff that was supposed to be problematic. So that's what that was. So that was a Christian citing the differences. So anyway, there's four primary sources there. I'm saying to support his first point. I'm saying he's demonstrating how these groups.
Adam, real quick, we speak about primary sources a lot. Could you just do a quick breakdown? What do we mean when we say a primary source for the people?
Yeah, so the primary source is going to be something from the time period. I'm saying it's not like if I say XYZ happened in 1592, you know what I'm saying, and I have a book written in 1992 to demonstrate it. Well, that's not a primary source. You know what I'm saying? A primary source is where you're getting at, the actual, whether it be documents or artifacts or something from contemporaneous to the time. You see what I'm saying? That's what you really want to see. You know what I'm saying? So if you're making a claim, you want to draw from something that's contemporaneous to the time. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what we're thinking about. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm trying not to confuse.
We have I don't know if you want to stop. We do have a question here. I don't know if you want to take the question now. From
let me.
You want to wait? You want to wait?
Yeah, let me.
Okay.
Let's come back to it. I just kind of want to wrap up, like summarize.
Yeah, do your thing. Yeah.
What he's doing, then we'll come back to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So so he's given us reason to affirm his first point from primary sources. What about his second point about the broader understanding amongst these groups in terms of how to engage various religions? The kind of pick and choose mentality. It's not about copying; it's about complementing. Did he provide something for that? Yes, he provided. The fact that you have this Jesus Horus document that's showing them. Actually, I put 5th century, but it's even later than that. It's the 7th century.
Right.
So you have an example of a practitioner of this traditional religion trying to layer on Christianity, like you said, to hedge those bets a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Make sure he's good to go.
Okay.
So that's an example of somebody picking and choosing. And then secondly, when it comes to the persecution, I'm going to say a little bit more about this. But when he mentions Christians being persecuted, Egyptians were not persecuted, talking about the Roman persecution, religious persecution. And he was just pointing out, like you said, at this, in the ancient world, it was cool to be, practicing Egyptian religion, traditional religions. You know what I'm saying? What was not cool is making the exclusive claim that, Jesus is on the one that we worship. So he's just making the point that, there's this alignment between the Egyptian religion. There's a sharing between them and the Roman religions. And there's also this alignment such that they were not persecuted, whereas the singled out ones were the Christians, because there was something distinct about these Christians that the Romans had to do something about. So again, that kind of just demonstrates, that Romans and Egyptians were on the same page. I'm saying with respect to sharing of gods and beliefs and so on and so forth, they're on the same page. So that's why Rome wasn't persecuting them. I'm saying Christians were not on that same page. I'm saying they were seen as distinct. You see what I'm saying?
They were called atheists.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah. Very
They
good.
were called
Very
atheists.
good. Atheists. I'm saying because they wouldn't venerate the Roman, the state gods and whatnot. And so I'm actually going to go back to I had this other slide here talking about just going a little further on that persecution part, right?
Sure.
So if the two worldviews were as Jabari claims, then you wouldn't expect Christians to be persecuted as they were, right? There's a significant difference between them, and the Egyptian religion, such that they're treated differently by Rome, and that's something that you pointed out earlier. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there. Mm-hmm. Now I do want to address this. Somebody, and I want to say I think Jabari tried to do this actually, if I'm not mistaken. In his portion of the debate, he tried. I think a counterpoint would be, maybe the difference which prompted the persecution was the Christians' exclusivity claim. So that it's not so much that these two religions were different, or that Christianity was different, but it's just the fact that they made that exclusivity claim that prompted the persecution. But my response to that would be, given the Christians' conviction of exclusivity, the idea that they built their spiritual system on borrowed paganism becomes less plausible. I'm saying, so if the non-acceptance, of other religions is so notable about them that it would put their lives in danger, that character trait does not lend itself to the idea that they were building their religion, their spiritual system, on something they borrowed from somebody else. Because they're so willing to just
they would just add another god to the pantheon and they kept it moving.
Right. That's it. But these Christians were so willing to just refute and just utterly abhor these other gods, stay away from these other gods, that they're willing to die for it. Anybody like that, it's not likely that person can be like, yeah, I'm going to build my life off of Horus. But then when the Romans come around, I'm gonna just go ahead and take that L. I'm saying for it doesn't make sense. I'm saying it's not consistent. That character trait is not consistent with the copyist perspective that Jabari would want to impose on the conversation. And an example of this would be, and I'm going to put this, matter of fact, put this link in the chat. The Emperor Trajan, there's a document called the Epistulae X Letter 96. Okay. And this is just an example of the point that I just made. Okay, there we go. And in this letter, you have this guy, he's named, I think it's Pliny the Younger, who's writing to Emperor Trajan and trying to figure out what to do with these Christians in his locality. And so he's like, look, I'm arresting these folks and I'm trying to put them to death. I'm saying if they're really Christians, could be not rocking with them like that. And he's trying to get some advice on it. He's explaining what he's doing. And what he says is, one of the ways, or actually the primary way that he knows that he's got a Christian on his hands that he needs to execute is if he tries to get them to denounce Jesus and worship the Roman gods. If they refuse to do it, then that's a real Christian. You know what I'm saying? And he's going to put them to death. Anybody that he, put that ultimatum to, and they renounce Christ and worship the other God, he said, okay, well, therefore, I know this person's not a real Christian.
That's a great point.
They're not a real Christian if they're going to buckle under the pressure and worship one of these Roman gods. Now, if I have a real Christian on my hands, they're going to buckle on me. They're not going to deny Christ, and they're getting that axe. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point.
That was the litmus test for whether or not Pliny the Younger would execute you for being a Christian. The litmus test was whether or not you stuck to your guns about Jesus, or worship, the Roman gods and got involved in that syncretism type of thing, like bowed your knee to the syncretism of the time. Right. Now, if that's the defining characteristic, of the Christian at that time, such that, Pliny the Younger is willing to execute people on that basis, those aren't the kinds of people who will be building their worldview around borrowed ideas of other pagan gods in the area. It's totally implausible. I'm saying when we're talking about explanations, right? Again, we're dealing with competing explanations. Jabari's explanation, concerning the copying is insufficient to account for the kinds of people that we see evidence in the historical data as far as Christians are concerned, because it can't account for these kinds of people who are willing to go to the death, to buck on the pagan gods. is in Jabari's definition. Explanation leaves you with an inconsistency there. Whereas if you look at Bantu's explanation, he can account for what we see here with Emperor Trajan and so forth, because he's saying that these are distinct groups. You know what I'm saying? And that while folks out there was willing to, just pick and choose, we have these Christians who everybody understood to be distinct, themselves and others around them.
Right.
They're sticking to their guns, and they're building their worldview around Christ and Christ.
And again, it's not Bantu idea, right? He's just allowing the quote unquote ancestors speak for themselves.
Sure.
Right. That's all he's doing. He's just reminding us what they believed.
Right.
That's all Bantu's doing. He's not giving you his point of view at all. Right. It's like it's their point of view.
It's their point of view.
It's their point of view.
Their point of view. So I'm gonna. Okay. I'll get to that probably the next time. So.
You want to take
so I'm gonna just finish out, just kind of wrap it up. As far as where I'm going with the argumentation.
Do you think?
My question was, has Bantu given me enough? I'm saying, to support his point that Christianity being a copy of Kemet is an appropriate explanation. He's saying no. He's saying that Christianity is not a copy of Kemet. And how did he do that? He provided primary sources, that give me a window through which I can understand how they understood themselves at that time. And he provided an alternate explanation. He provided the explanation that these are two distinct worldviews. And in the world at that time, you have syncretism going on where people are borrowing from different worldviews. That was a character trait of the Egyptians, not the Christians. And so, that's how they handled it. I'm saying we're not going to impose today's idea of what was going on back then. We're going to see what they were doing at the time and draw from there. And so that's what you have. You have these distinct worldviews, saying they're separate. Everybody understood that they were distinct. I'm saying you don't have people running around talking about y'all copied from us and you biting, so now we're not rocking with you. It's actually the opposite. I'm saying, so that mentality that people are trying to import back then, that's inappropriate. The historically appropriate way to understand that dynamic, to be drawn from primary sources, is that there were distinct worldviews. And while you do have people grab bagging, it wasn't the Christians doing it. Right. That was the dynamic between them. You know what I'm saying? So now again, if somebody wants to say, well, no, they were copying and so forth, and maybe just people at the time didn't realize it, well, that's going to be on Brother Jabari to prove that. Bantu doesn't have to prove Jabari's case or whatever. He's giving you a plausible explanation. And if Jabari in his aspect of the realm cannot give you a plausible explanation drawn from primary sources, then the rational thing to do is to say that Bantu has provided the better explanation and won that round.
Right. Because I'm not interested in what Jabari or Bantu has to say. I'm interested to what these historical people had to say at that time. So in order for Jabari to have a compelling argument, he has to show primary sources of these people making his claim.
Right.
I need to see a stela, a papyrus, something written on the wall that says, hey, these guys took our intellectual property. Like, that's what I need to see in order for him to create a compelling argument.
Right. So the ball's in his court. So really what happened is Bantu has said, all right, bro, I'm going to give a plausible explanation as to how we can properly understand the dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. And if you're going to win this round, you got to jump. you got to provide a better explanation to me. Is that cool? And if you can't do it, if you can't go through primary sources like I did and provide a plausible explanation as to the relationship between the two, like I did, then there's no good reason why any rational person should accept your perspective on this round. Therefore, you got to take that L. that's really what Bantu did.
Pretty much.
Threw down the gauntlet. You said we had a
I have an interesting question here from Michael. Let me show it. Says here, people from Dagger Squad are trying to now call what Christianity did was consolidate a bunch of faith together into one and not call it copying now. Thoughts? What do you think of that, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah. Okay, so this is something that I didn't necessarily want to get into until we got to the Jabari part, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway, maybe in snippet form.
Okay.
So here's the thing: when historians do their work, you're saying in any given field, there's a methodology.
Right.
There's a way that people go about arriving at conclusions such that those conclusions should be taken as credible. Okay, there's a methodology, right? Now, when you talk about historical methodology, okay, there's criteria for how they determine which accounts of what happened in the past are more plausible or more likely to have happened than others. Okay, and trying to understand what happened in the past, let me say it again, there's different criteria or tools that historians will use to determine which explanation of what happened in the past is better than other explanations. Okay. One of the criteria or one of those tools has to do with the simplicity of an explanation. Okay.
Occam's razor.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the same thing in science. It's the same thing. It's a philosophical principle that you can apply in any area of study, in any area of philosophy, like you said, science, or like I said, science, or what have you. Okay. The simpler if all things are equal, you know what I'm saying, if you got two competing explanations, let's just put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
You got two competing explanations, and those explanations are neck and neck, you know what I'm saying, in terms of what they're able to explain and how accurately they're able to explain what happened in the past. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take which of the explanations is simpler, you know what I'm saying, as a deciding factor as in terms of which explanation you're going to prefer as being more likely true. Okay. Now, when you're talking about this claim that Christianity has cobbled together various different worldviews and consolidated a bunch of faiths and put them all into one, the problem with that is to prove that you're injecting more pieces to the puzzle than the simpler explanation of Jesus rose from the dead. and you have a progression of Christianity flowing from Judaism into the fulfillment of what Old Testament Judaism prophesied, talked about, what have you. I'm saying, the resurrection and so forth. That's a simpler explanation. The Orthodox account of how Christianity developed, let's put it that way, is a simpler account of how Christianity developed than saying that, okay, well, we took some from over here, we took some from over there, because for every influence that you bring into the mix, you've got to account for that with evidence and reason.
Right.
So the more different worldview you say that we grab from, the more evidence you're going to have to produce, and the more reason, and you're going to have to come up with more angles. I'm saying, to put all those pieces together. I'm saying, so you have a less simple explanation. I'm saying, and a less simple explanation, I'm saying, compared to one that is able to explain the data, right, or explain whatever it is you're trying to explain, and is more simple. The less simple explanation is to be rejected. That's just a simple principle. Like
right.
You said, it's Occam's razor. So, so for example, I'm saying, if you want to say that, I'm not really sure which worldviews or which faiths, they're referring to. So I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth or anything like that. But for whichever one they're talking about, they're going to have to provide some, not only like a similarity of some sort. We're going to do more than that. And this is what I was going to get into in the next round with Jabari. Maybe I don't want to go too far with it now, but they're going to have to do more than just say A is like B, therefore B came from A.
Well, again, right, it's not an accusation, it's a claim, right? So they're the ones that have to do the heavy lifting, not us, right? Now, Michael, to your question here, one of the first things you want to do in any kind of conversation is you got to define terms, right? Because words have definitions, but they also have connotations, right? A good example is the word lit, right? The word lit is something coming to a flame, something catching fire. But today, lit means something excitable. We're having a good time. It's lit. That's the connotation, right? So when they say consolidate, what I would ask is, well, what do you mean by consolidate?
Sure, that's good. Yeah.
Do you mean contextualize the gospel? Or do you actually mean, like what Adam said, cobbling up together various theologies or worldviews, right? Then also the word faith, right? That's another prominent word. Christians have to do a better breakdown of what biblical faith is, because faith is not blind faith. Faith is in the Korean Greek is pistis, which is to be persuaded, right? To come to a conviction about something that they've already known and experienced, right? So are they saying that they consolidated different things that they're convicted about? Is that what they're saying? And also the word Christianity, right? When you look at the word, you look at the suffix, the ity, it means the state of being, right? The word Christ means to be the Messiah, the anointed one. So Christianity is the state of being like Messiah. So are they claiming that the state of being Messiah came from a cobbling of different things that they were persuaded from? And if so, they have to show us how that works. Again, they have to answer those questions, not you. It's their claim.
And you know what? Let me harp on that. Come back on that point. Shout out to Mac Jackson, because he just made a great point, MJ Jackson, about the concept of something being ad hoc, which means, it's Latin for me, just for that. You know what I'm saying? So, if somebody comes up, with an explanation saying, or let's say you're trying to explain something, and somebody says, well, what if it was this? And they just come up with some random explanation, and that explanation they give has no evidence to back it up. I'm saying there's no good reason to believe it. They're just saying that, well, if this happened, then that explains what we're talking about here. Well, that's ad hoc. You know what I'm saying? So if I say that, my car was stolen, right? And my wife comes down and says, I think it was aliens. Well, yeah, I mean, if it were aliens, that would account for my car being gone. But, other than her just telling me it was aliens, I have no good reason to think there was actually aliens. It was probably something more simple than that. It was probably something else. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, great point, Mac Jackson, in terms of, pointing out that, people just are giving these ad hoc explanations for, how Christianity came to be. You know what I'm saying? And I would argue that, they're going to have a greater hill to climb, than as opposed to the Orthodox understanding how it came about.
Right, because they would have to prove that at the very inception of the conveyance of the gospel, that various worldviews was somehow stitched together prior to the launching of Christianity.
Yeah.
They would have to prove that with primary sources as well. Again, they got to prove a lot of things to back up their claim. I just sit back and listen. I do nothing there, and neither should you. So,
right. I agree. Any other questions, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Anybody else got we need to stomp Adam Coleman.
Say on that point, there's much more I can say on that point, but I'm
hold. I know. You got to hold. Right.
Because I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it there for now. But I'm intensely holding back on that point. Yeah.
MJ Jackson here. First century monotheistic Jews consolidated many religions into one, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, it was actually, and I'm just kind of talking off the cuff right now. But maybe I can find a source and put it in the description. I'll send it to you, something like that. But there was actually an account of where you're dealing with pre-Christian Jews in the Roman Empire, and who were under pressure, you know what I'm saying, to bow their knee to the Roman gods, and just like the Christians, they actually Bantu refers to this, just like the Christians, they like, look, no, there's one God, Yahweh, period.
Right.
Y'all can do whatever you want to do. We're not bound to it, period. And uncharacteristically for Rome, it was like, all right, man, forget y'all. We just do what you do, whatever. I'm saying, just don't get in everybody else's way. They just let the Jews slide. And that's kind of how it went down. I mean, there's documentation of that. So,
I mean, the statement is a little humorous here.
Of
the statement is a little humorous because he's like, monotheistic Jews consolidated many religions.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Ironic, right. Well, and see, the other thing is too is now let me clarify this. The Jews, like the Christians, I'm saying, we're very committed to the exclusivity of the God that they worship. You know what I'm saying, and the claims they made about him. Okay. With that being said, and this is something that you dealt with Augustine. I'm saying, with that being said, there are things that are true about the world, and there are things that are true about God. You know what I'm saying, that other cultures, you know what I'm saying, may stumble upon, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And when we come across those, there's no shame or undermining of Christianity to acknowledge those things.
Right.
And actually, Bantu made this point in the first round.
Right.
And if we make it theological, you can deal with Romans chapter 1 through 3. You know what I'm saying? Where it talks about how, we've all been imprinted. We're all made in God's image. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Acts 7.
We're all accountable.
Acts 7. Yeah, Acts 7 when Paul talks to Stoic philosophers.
Yeah, Acts 17, exactly. You know what I'm saying? I think it's verse 28 and so forth. You know what I'm saying? That of one man, God made all nations.
Right.
And he pointed the bounds of their habitation.
Some of your own prophets said that we are God's offspring.
Thank you. Exactly. So it's not so Christians, and you know what? Maybe this is something that Christians need to be more careful of. Like, we don't have to tell everybody that they're wrong about everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for example, just to make it simple, Christians believe that there's one God. Muslims believe that God exists. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some agreement on the fact that God exists, right? We don't have to say, no, you're wrong about that. Well, no, they're right. Muslims are right that God exists. You know what I'm saying? Now, in terms of the nature of God and the triunity of God, that's where we're going to, fine tune and clash and whatnot. But it's not like all religions, and I know it's uncomfortable for some people to hear, but it's not like all religions are wrong on every single point. Right. And the Egyptians believed that there was a spiritual realm of some sort. You know what I'm saying? The Romans believed that there was a spiritual realm of some sort. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's going to be these commonalities. And that just goes to the point again. That's why when it comes to, people talking about copying this, copying that, I mean, you got to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, like, look, there's going to be some things that overlap. Perfect example. I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about similarities. Okay. Think about West Africa. All right. The people that we come from. Mm-hmm. There's nothing foreign to West Africans about the notion of there being an intermediary between man and the Most High.
Right.
That's not a foreign concept to West Africa.
And a high God that oversees everything. The high God.
That's not. Thank you. Now you might call him Chukwu, you might call him Chikinge,
Nyombe, right,
Nyombe, Olodumare. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's different names, but the concept of a high God, there's a Most High. Many of now they're gonna differ in terms of what that means, how it plays out, whether he's far away from us or whether he's near. Mm-hmm. There's different perspectives on that on the African continent. But the bottom line is, it's not the case that everything about Christianity is foreign to everything about Western.
Right.
There's going to be some overlap.
Right.
So that's why, you know what I'm saying, as you said with Paul, you know what I'm saying, he can say, look, I'm quoting your poets. You know what I'm saying, we live, we move, we have our being in the Most High. You know what I'm saying, they weren't wrong about that. Right. Just Martyr, who Jabari later on misquotes. He's also known for saying that philosophy was the law, he's referring to the Mosaic law. He said philosophy was the law to the Greeks. In other words, it was the mechanism that God used to bring Greek civilization, you know what I'm saying, in contact with, and maybe in a preparatory way for the gospel. You see what I'm saying? So my whole point is, we got to be careful of when we talk about, this is similar to that, or there's overlap here or there. Of course there is, because we're all made in God's image, and it's just like if you have a radio and it's got like a broken receiver, you're going to get like every other word or something like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or let's use a more a better example, a better analogy, a cell phone. Let's make it contemporary. It's you got a cell phone and you got a bad signal. You know what I'm saying? You might hear every fifth word. You know what I'm saying? But you still hear that word. It's kind of like that's how it is with some of these other religions. You know what I'm saying? They get some things right. You know what I'm saying? But it's just that Christianity, God knowing that we're all depraved, that we messing up, you know what I'm saying? He sent special revelation through his word, you know what I'm saying, and also ultimately through his son Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? He sent the full revelation of what it is that he's communicating to man so that we could rightly be reconciled to him. Right. That's what Christianity is about. So yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yep.
So I don't see any more questions, guys. If we don't have any more, we're gonna really wrap this up because it's 12:16 Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, we did pretty good.
It's about 2 hours. About 2 hours.
Not bad. Yeah. So you want to, maybe we talk about what we're going to do and when we're going to do it as far as the next round, what we're looking at, or?
Yeah, we're gonna. Well, when would you want to do this? Tuesday, you said, right? You want to try shoot for Tuesday?
Yeah, we want to try Tuesday. So everybody, we're going to be over at my YouTube channel, True ID Podcast YouTube channel. So again, this is your first time, riding with us on these breakdowns. We're flip flopping between my channel and BK Apologist channel. You know what I'm saying? So we're sharing some love back and forth there, and I think it's dope. So the next link in the chain, we're going to be on my channel, and I believe you're going to be taking the lead. We're going to be looking at Jabari's second round. Because remember, Bantu has given us an explanation as to what is the right way to view, historically speaking, the interaction or dynamic between Christianity and Kemeticism. Jabari is going to try to, advance his view. The copy view is the right way to look at it.
Right.
So we're going to evaluate his use of primary sources and see if he's able to to do that.
I'll give you a light spoiler. He provides very old arguments.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing new that he brings up. So Michael, I'm glad you asked the question. Definitely. I definitely appreciate that. That was fun.
That was good. And J Norm 888 said part 3 never came out though. Yeah, so he's I guess you're talking about the actual debate.
Round 3.
I'm expecting that it probably will pretty soon. I mean, it's I know that it's through Eric Mason's people. And okay, you said something about Bart Ehrman earlier too. I'll come back to that. But and they just came out of the frequency conference, I'm saying not too long ago. So I'm pretty sure that they, were
a lot of editing.
A lot of editing. And then one thing to remember too, and actually this just occurred to me just now. I hadn't even thought about it, but one difference between the third round and the other 2 rounds is I'm guessing they're probably going to include the Q&A. So
I hope they include the Q&A.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I hope so.
There's a lot of blood got spilled at the Q&A. Let me tell you right now. That joint look like the Red Wedding real quick. I'm telling you. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, what happens in Philly stays in Philly, man. But, maybe not. I guess if they put it in,
there was some slow singing and flower bringing during the Q&A. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So it just occurred to me just now. I mean, I'm imagining that there's probably some different camera angles and things they would need to do.
We need to do a whole episode just in the Q&A.
Yeah, you know what? That's not a bad idea.
So much stuff that happened in the Q&A. Yeah, that's a whole separate show for real.
Right. So so I guess we'll do part 3 when they drop that. Again, we'll go, probably half and half, breaking the round up in halves.
That's right.
Deal with the rebuttals. And then I guess we can circle back around, later on to Bantu's first round, maybe.
Sure, we could do that.
Maybe we can tack that on to the Q&A, depending on how long that goes. I don't know. We'll see. Right. Definitely. Somebody said something about Bart Ehrman. They said they're using the old arguments from Bart Ehrman. I'm gonna leave that alone for now, but I agree. I just leave it at that.
Yeah. Adam went on the Q&A. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Woo!
Oh, that.
He brought the fuego. Let me tell you.
Oh man, well, I had a good time. I'll just put it that way.
Yes, you did.
I enjoyed myself.
He enjoyed himself.
He said, I mean, Adam went in on it. Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Adam went in on the Q&A portion. That was great, But yeah, it's just one of those things, man. We got to continue to study. Again, I can only stress, enough that I can't stress enough that nobody's omniscient. I'm saying, if you ask me enough questions, you're going to stump me eventually. I mean, nobody knows everything.
Right.
I'm saying, we need all hands on deck, y'all. We all got to keep studying. Got to keep.
The workers are few, man. The workers are few.
Workers a few. I'm always, grinding. I mean, I recognize everybody can't be that way, I'm saying, but I'm always on the grind, trying to learn more, trying to get sharper, trying to refine my thinking. And that's the way it should be. Christianity is not a dumb man's religion.
Nope.
And I don't care what anybody in the conscious community has to say about it. It is what it is. So it is not the dumb man's religion. So yeah, man. So I guess Tuesday, I guess we will keep it at 10 o'clock, maybe.
Yeah, we're gonna continue the deep dive analysis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So with that being said, this is the BK Apologist, Adam Coleman signing off. We'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.